Hey guys, it's Phantom here and welcome back to a brand new video everyone. So in today's video, I am going to be going over 5 side quests in Wizard101 that I think are especially interesting and intriguing. Pretty much just side quests that overall stand out from all of the other ones, and every time I do them, I'm definitely mark them as a point of interest because there is just like something particularly unique about these side quests in the content that they contain that makes it stand out above the rest. Anyways, I think I've said enough here. Let us get into number 5. So first up on the list is going to be the side quest that gets you to the Tower of the Elephant dungeon right here. This side quest is obtainable from Belladonna Crisp at the required level once you do finish Wisteria. And the reason why I think that this side quest, stands out above the rest is just because it leads you to just such an amazing, pretty looking dungeon that is very, very, very difficult for the level that you come in at. I don't remember exactly what level. I think it's like around level 60 or 70 might be like when you get the quest to do this dungeon, but I think that the Tower of Elephant is just a super cool thing. It's just placed so randomly here, just in Pegasus Place. You've got all your other dungeons and your NPCs in the streets of Wisteria that you come in at level 25, but then there's just this giant tower here and you're wondering what it is, and then it turns out it's the Tower of the Elephant when you eventually come back here at level 60, 70, whenever that is, to actually do the dungeon. Now, of course, this dungeon does stand out just because of how difficult it is, and I remember a lot of people farming it a long time ago for the Lexicon Blade and the R8 band. Those are special themes and rings that you can get from this that used to be like the best, but now they're really not worth farming for at all because there's just better alternatives now that the game's been out for a while. But one thing that has always interested me about this dungeon is the final boss present at the top of the tower, which is I think it's actually no, it might not be, no, it's not the final boss, which is Lion Lore Striker. It's actually the Elephant boss, which is like a few floors before that, or like a floor before the final boss or something like that. But the Elephant actually mentions his home world of Yago, which I think it's a super duper interesting name drop and how they decided to do it in a Wisteria dungeon. Unfortunately, it was a long time ago, so the chance that we would actually see like a Elephant world, the original home world of the elephants, Yago, the actual chance that Yago would come out as a real world, I feel like is just extremely, extremely low just because of how long ago this came out. But I do think it is super, super interesting. I think it is a really, really cool thing to note about the dungeon and how it does name drop like the Star Fields of Yaga or something. I believe that was like his description of it, which just sounds really, really cool and very, very mysterious, and still remains a mystery to this day, and definitely, in my opinion, makes this one of the most interesting side quests. Next side quest is going to be one that I think a lot of people are not very familiar with. So this is going to be a side quest given by Vosh Tal in Samsara Village in Imperia Part 2, and this quest is especially interesting because it talks about the nothing and actually kind of clues us into how we would try to begin to perceive the nothing. So basically what the quest has you do is it's pretty simple. You come over to like these little, I don't really know what to call them, but like little things with information on them. Anyways, you gotta like read up on those, and it gives you a little bit of insight into if there could possibly be such a thing as the nothing. Now, of course, the nothing has been mentioned in Wiz for so long. I mean, it's literally been like a prevalent topic ever since Imperia Part 2 was finished, and this side quest here, it basically clues us in on the nothing as being something that is itself and also its own opposite, as well as hinting beyond like the materialistic things in the spiral and actually wondering about each little being's like origins and stuff like that. And I know that sounds really, really complicated, but I do have a video posted that I posted a long time ago actually going over this side quest and all the dialogue present inside of it. But what I do think is super duper interesting and why this one stands out, because even though it is like a random quest given by a random NPC in Imperia, it talks about some of the big things that are coming to the game, which I think is really, really cool that they just decided to add this little tidbit here into you know, what the nothing could be and how we would define nothing and everything like that. So I just think that is super duper interesting. So the next side quest is going to be a side quest given by the dump foreman here, and this side quest entails us going into one of the dungeons here in the drains, I don't know exactly which one, and meeting a fellow called the Salty Prepper, I believe his name is, who is a very, very interesting character because, you know, we're originally tasked with going into that dungeon and basically getting him out of there because he's kind of like barred himself in. You know, he's locked himself in there because he thinks the end of the spiral is coming, and that is what is so interesting about this side quest and how it shines from a lot of the other Catacomb side quests is because it talks about the end of the spiral. And this Salty Prepper guy, he mentions that there are actually 72 like possible endings to the spiral or something like that, or like 72 ways that the spiral can end, and then we go on to like prevent one of them during the quest, which is just a super interesting concept in of itself. Like 72 ways is just absolutely insane. But then he does also briefly mention the nothing in his quest as well. He's like, it always has to be something, like something has to be the end of the spiral unless it is the nothing, which, you know, is really interesting because what this quest is doing is further pushing the narrative that the nothing is the something to be feared, you know, the something to watch out for. We have to watch out for the nothing because it is the reason why the spiral is going to come to an end one day, so we gotta look out for it so we can stop it when the time comes. So it's a really interesting tidbit kind of side quest here that clues us in even more into how the nothing is super duper dangerous and we gotta be wary of it. So I think it was definitely worthy to put on this list because I feel like a lot of people don't actually know about this quest. You know, it's kind of hidden. I wonder if like this is the quest right here actually. Hold on here. I think things dug down deep in a pipe. I don't even know, dude. I don't even know if that's the right quest. It might be, but anyways, that is going to be it for this Catacomb side quest. Let's move on. Next up on the list, we have the side quest that takes you to Brisk Tower. Now, of course, this side quest is super duper interesting and worth mentioning because, of course, it does take you to the dungeon of Brisk Tower. Now, what is so special about Brisk Tower, you may ask? Well, this is one of the first dungeons, or it was one of the first dungeons in the game where bosses actually cheated for the first time. You know, it kind of acted as like that, kind of like that Darkmoor dungeon, except it was after the first arc where people could farm for, I believe it was like a super duper good ring or something, or like really good ring for the time that the final boss dropped. So that is of course very memorable in of itself as to why this dungeon is here. But also another thing that I think is really intriguing is the final boss of this dungeon. In the last little bit of his dialogue here, I don't remember if it's like when we first enter the final room or like after we defeat the final boss. Don't remember, haven't done the dungeon in a very long time. And he mentions that something is coming to the spiral, and I don't remember, I mean that was the basic premise. Basically something is gonna come to the spiral, and kind of just telling us, you know, we got to be ready for it. So that's a definitely very mysterious piece of dialogue, and it's really weird that they would include that in there. You know, to this day, no one has ever really figured out what that piece of dialogue meant or what he was talking about. Of course, he could have been talking about Morganth. Maybe he could have been talking about the nothing. I honestly have no idea, but that little piece of dialogue has not been decoded yet, which is really interesting. I mean, most likely he probably was referencing all of the problems that were going to happen in the second arc with the coming of Morganth, or the recoming of Morganth, whatever you want to call it. But I think it is really interesting that they included that little piece of dialogue in there. I think it is definitely a super duper fun piece of dialogue, I suppose, that, you know, players can do their best to decrypt. But I do think this dungeon is very mysterious overall. It's in a very cool location as well in Colossus Boulevard. So the side quest that takes you here, I believe you have to rescue a lieutenant or something like that. Anyways, though, I should have probably mentioned that at the beginning, but yeah, you do have to come in here to rescue a lieutenant. But yeah, that is why Brisk Tower, or, you know, of course, the quest that takes you here is so memorable. And finally, the Spiral Geographic Society Archives dungeon, or of course, the quest that takes you here, is going to be the final one on the list for the most interesting side quests in the game here. Now this one is really especially noteworthy because this used to be part of the main quest line. You used to have to go to the Spiral Geographic Society archives in order to obtain the key to Celestia directly after finishing Arc 1 in order to gain access to the second arc. So this actually didn't used to be a side quest, but since it is not required of the main quest anymore, and since you can actually still get this quest, if you, I believe you can still get the quest if you've like just finished, you know, Arc 1, you can get it from Baelstrom, but I think like any point after that, if you've like quested into Celestia, it might not be available for you. But I did get it on my fire a very long time ago, and I think this is definitely a really memorable quest because similar to Brisk Tower, this was one of the first dungeons in the game where bosses and mobs actually cheated, so that definitely made it a lot harder in of itself. The tower also has a very interesting boss if you actually make it to the top. He's like one of those chrysalis bug guys, but what is really cool is after you defeat him, apparently he like says the prophecy or something like the mirror will break, the horn will call, all of that jazz, you know, before he goes out, which I think is definitely really cool and a really perfect start to the second arc because that is the prophecy that pretty much Morganth kind of bases all of her plans off of. So I think that is really cool. I'm not sure actually why they chose to take this out of the game because I think it's a really interesting, you know, dungeon here that introduces Celestia quite well in my opinion and provides an explanation for actually getting the spiral key. So I think it is really cool. Maybe it was like too hard for some wizards or something like that, so they just decided to make it a sort of side quest. I'm honestly not really sure, but to this day, you know, the Spiral Geographic Society archives will remain here to just kind of be mysterious and maybe once in a while lure in a wizard or two. Anyways, though, that is going to be all from me for this video, so I really hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, you could always leave a like or subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel a lot, and I am forever grateful for any support that you could give me. But that's going to be it for this video. I will see you all in the next video or stream, whenever that may be, so take care and peace out, everyone.